see if you can use that song to just kind of settle in right here, right now. And it's a song about relationship and connection that I wrote. Can you hear that all right, John? Have you ever been lonely with people all around, surrounded by your family, but lonesome anyhow? Though you're right beside me, you seem so far away. Your eyes, they show you come and go. Baby, I want you to stay and be with me. Hungry for your eyes, be with me. I'm thirsty for your signs, be with me. Want you near me, won't you please? Yeah, yeah. Be with me. I want to share some quietness, a tender lullaby. Some things we say just get in the way, so let me hear you murmur and sigh. I want to see you gaze at me and feel you open wide. Allow me to look back at you and see deep inside. Be with me. I'm hungry for your eyes. Be with me. Thirsty for your sighs. Be with me. I want you near me. Won't you please? Yeah, yeah. Be with me. Yeah, yeah. Be with me. Yeah. Be with me. All right.
Hi, Tabor. I wanted to say, Tabor, that Tabor has been a part of a lot of the Black churches in Oakland and has a history of singing gospel and soul music. And I wonder, you're coming out of that tradition, if you could say a little bit something about that, of bringing that kind of energy into this work.
Oh, well, thanks for asking about that. Yeah, I have a very checkered past spiritually. I quite a spiritual omnivore. I lived in a Zen center for years and did lots of hardcore Eastern meditation practices, but I actually found them, although deeply enriching, especially for my mind, a little dry for my heart. So I've actually had a long-standing connection with African American culture, and I spent a lot of time in the Black church, which really ministered to my soul, and so the work that I want to do is both deeply spiritual and draws heavily on meditation, but is also passionate, ecstatic, and that's part of the integration that I think is probably called of for in this day and age, so that we middle class people or middle class white people or whatever can reclaim our ability to passionately express. Hey, there's a thing in the middle of the uh, I don't know how to. Okay, I was afraid to click cancel on this because it's right in the middle of the. Okay, there. Now I can see your face without a little window in front of you. So yes, everyone, welcome. Happy Thanksgiving. Thanksgiving call. Happy Valentine's Day to you. And oftentimes Valentine's is sort of a cheesy holiday, but we wanted to do a call in honor of Valentine's, which celebrates the incredible potential of relationship, especially intimate relationships, and particularly romantic or erotic relationships. Most of us have had the experience of them being very challenging at times. I know I have. I am a card-carrying member of High Drama Anonymous because I have done it. And some of my first relationships, I was just like Mr. Even Keel. And then I realized we weren't actually communicating about anything that really mattered, and we're slowly drifting apart. Then I learned the art of emotional self-expression, and things got kind of Italian up in there, and now there's an integration where I can both go really deep and without much drama. So that's part of what I am passionate about teaching people. But yeah, relationships are kind of notoriously challenging. We tend to experience them as a lot of work, as really difficult, and I think that that's partly because we unconsciously, at least, perhaps consciously, but at least unconsciously, have expect them to do the wrong kind of work. They don't work for us because we are asking them to do the wrong kind of work. What did your poll say, John? What did people
Yeah,
say?
so poll still in progress. If you haven't voted, you'll see the poll there. But and it's probably not by chance that this group who's coming on this call would be in on this. But number one is, what do you consider the main point of a relationship? Number one was personal growth,
Nice.
44%. Number two, spiritual transformation.
Nice.
Number three, companionship. And going like way, way down, almost non-existent, is children, intellectual match, and sex.
All right. Well,
But
clearly.
of course, the question was framed as main point. So the fact that people put spiritual transformation above sex, but it's funny to see sex at just real low. So there are a few people on the call who think sex is the main point. Yeah.
Yes. Well, clearly I am preaching to the choir, so I won't belabor the point. Yes, I think that we tend to unconsciously set relationships up by expecting them to complete us, to make us happy, to fulfill us. And we think, if I just find the right person, then I'll be happier than I was before I found them. And you see, tons of self-help stuff out there that's like, find your perfect mate, as if once you find your perfect mate, everything will be hunky-dory. In my experience, not so. in my experience, once you find your perfect mate, then the work begins. Then the challenges reveal themselves. So whereas we tend to unconsciously think of the purpose of relationship is make me happy or complete me, I say the purpose, as many of you are already saying, is the transformation of the people within the relationship. And I can attest from very personal experience that you can spend a lot of time meditating and doing deep spiritual work, and then you get into a really intimate relationship, and here comes all the stuff that was hiding in the dark corners while you were meditating, but now it's right up in the middle of your face. So it's like Ram Dass saying, "Oh, you've achieved enlightenment. Well, why don't you go spend a week with your parents for Christmas and see how that goes?" So how do we start to use this incredible potential of relationship for transformation? That's the big question. And we'll go into, this is mostly going to be a conversation. I'm just saying a few introductory comments, but this will mostly be in conversation with you. But a few pointers in that direction are for the most part, when people get together because they're looking to each other to try to make them happy, there's a lot of control going on, both self-control, where I try to make a good impression or please my partner well, or be who I think they want me to be, and other control, where I try to either through indirect or direct means get my partner to behave the way that I want them to. And that's an indirect, whoops, there we go. And I try to get them to behave the way that I want them to, either explicitly or implicitly. And then, not surprisingly, my partner either cooperates in some way with my attempts to control them because they are, again, trying to make a good impression on me. But if they do that, oftentimes it breeds this subtle resentment at being controlled, or they just out and out resist being controlled by you. And over time, the relationship becomes a power struggle where it's like, well, who's going to get whose way? So control is kind of the nemesis of actual love, and control is also a major hindrance to evolution, to spiritual growth, to transformation. The more that energy that you're spending trying to control yourself or others, the more you are in resistance to reality as it is. Whereas the transformation comes from learning to see and embrace reality as it is. The reality of yourself, the reality of the people that you're trying to get close to. Now, of course, there's a huge opportunity to ask your partner or lovers or whatever for everything that you want. And oftentimes there's a beautiful giving and receiving where I want to give you what you want from me, and I'm all about skillful giving and receiving, asking and offering. But for that to work really well, it's got to be uh, built on the foundation of I accept you as you are. I'm completely willing to let you be who you are. I'm not trying to tell you how you should be, so that my request ends up being a version of I'm 100% responsible for my happiness. You're 100% responsible for yours. I'm going to ask you for something as a favor, but you're under no obligation to give it to me because you don't owe me nothing and I don't owe you nothing. And when people can really feel you asking from that place, there's nothing for them to resist. There's a cleanness to that kind of request where it's like I'm standing in my own independence and granting you yours, and I'm asking, do you want to share this dance? And no is just as acceptable an answer as yes. But most of the time, we don't maintain that attitude. And another aspect that goes along with this issue of control versus acceptance that makes relationships transformational is if you aren't attached to control, then you can afford to do another practice, which is pretty revolutionary. We could call it uh, radical honesty, or I sometimes call it the yoga of telling the total truth, where you, rather than being diplomatic or sneaky or polite or blah, 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 you're just actually noticing what is the truth about yourself, the truth of your own experience. Everything you think, everything you feel, everything you want, all of your behavior, and you're willing to, uh, without censorship, share that with another person. Now, at the same time, you take responsibility for it. Like telling someone else they're a jerk is not telling the truth. Telling them that I'm feeling angry right now and I'm judging you as a jerk in my mind right now, that is the truth. And sometimes those kinds of truths are very embarrassing and they may be hard for someone else to hear. But for a relationship to be totally transformational in the way that we've been talking about, I think it needs to be totally committed to telling the truth, revealing oneself, and inviting the other to reveal themselves to you. And then you go through whatever you need to go through to accept the truth, which I suppose brings up a third point, which is that in transformational relationships, we have ways of working with emotion, working with everything that gets stirred up by the relationship, because a lot does get stirred up oftentimes, you know. So we have ways of either going deeper and revealing more emotionally, or of once emotion is right here up in our face, of riding those waves and and metabolizing the emotions that get stirred up and being nourished by them instead of thrown and then being, you know, kind of panicked by all of our emotional ups and downs, which sometimes people get in relationship. Okay. One more thing, because sex was in the title, is say something about the sexual dimension. Both the emotional attachment that comes with, you know, romantic relationships, and the energy of sexual attraction or eros, and oftentimes those, you know, come together, not necessarily, sometimes it can be one without the other. Oftentimes they're a package deal. But both this emotional attachment energy and this erotic attraction energy supercharge relationship. It's kind of like you can have an intimate relationship with a friend and practice all of those three dimensions that I was just mentioning, and that will be transformational. And somehow it seems when you introduce sexuality, uh, emotional attachment, romance, all that into the equation, everything gets amplified. You know, the uh, the the joys and the pleasures get amplified. The emotional reactivity and fears get amplified. It all gets supercharged, and and that sexuality even sometimes becomes a kind of like a messenger, a go-between between you and your unconscious. So, you know, say some kind of sexual fantasies start showing up that are confusing to you. They're like, oh, well, that's kind of embarrassing. I couldn't say that. In my experience, those kinds of turn-ons or fantasies or kinks are all carrying deep messages from the unconscious. It's sort of like they come bearing a package that it's up to you to learn how to open up, unpack, and learn from. And when you do, then sexual relationship can be sort of a royal road to the unconscious and a royal road to transformation. So I'm really excited to help people work with that whole realm because it's so rich and so rewarding. And it's also, you know, it requires some skill to dance with it well, but the potential is huge. So, okay, that's enough Tabor yakking. Now we're going to turn it into a conversation. And do we also have the option of people talking on camera if they want to?
Oh yeah, yeah. I said in the beginning, so that's the preferred way for people to come on and chat with you. They want to get a little more excitement out of the conversation.
Good.
Um, and then also everyone, there's the Q&A button. You can click that, and then I'll feed those questions to Tabor. So we're going to open it up right now. So if you have a question that you want to chat about live with Tabor, just put your hand up and then write your other questions in the Q&A. And so Tabor, in the meantime, while people just have a moment to reflect if there's any stuff coming up for them, I wondered if you would just say a little bit more about how you said once the foundation of total acceptance of your partner and that you are fully responsible for your own happiness in the relationship is met, then the kind of road towards the yoga of communication, of honesty, can kind of begin. And yet we're not in the place often of actually accepting our partners when we're in relationship. Is there a dance between those, or?
Oh, yeah, yeah. No, I didn't mean, even though I said that this asking for everything you want is built on the foundation of acceptance, uh, that foundation keeps getting built and shorn up as the it's a it's on that foundation functionally, not chronologically. Because yes, what happens is when you start communicating really openly, when you start asking for everything that you want, it's revealed to you again and again and again how you don't accept your partner as they are, or how you're not imagining that they are accepting you. And so that's where that working through the uh, emotional waves together comes up. You know, basically, this may sound like a little bit of a sad way to say it, but basically, you have to grieve uh, your own individuality or independence over and over again in intimate relationship. I mean, for some people, it may not be that so much. For some people, it's more like they have to keep opening a little more and more to the possibility of being interdependent. And they kind of like are, their natural go-to is more separate. In fact, it's in the zeitgeist right now about the attachment styles, how there's the avoidant attachment style and there's the anxious attachment style. Some people feel safer by being more separate and more distant. I guess I'm speaking more from my own perspective, which is the one who longs for deeper connection, and if you long for that kind of connection, then the opportunity is presented again and again in intimate relationship to go ahead and learn to accept the spaces between you, accept the gap, accept when you're wanting different things. And for some of us that can be hard, kind of sad, and you have to sort of grieve the loss of, I had this dream of perfect togetherness with no difficulty, and you have to kind of grieve that ultimately you're never going to find the perfect mommy or daddy, and you are on your own, and you are responsible for loving yourself first. And then when you have more and more of that skill at loving yourself, the more and more able you are to actually love someone else. So it's kind of a back and forth process of reaching out, letting go, reaching out, opening up, letting go, letting yourself desire and letting yourself accept.
So Tabor, either you have satisfied everyone's yearning around this conversation, or you've been too clear, so right now we don't have any questions. So I put out a little thing that what are challenges you're having both in your sexual relationships and your intimate relationships. And okay, we have one popping up here. We've got some attendees. Here we go. A little hand, a little provoke a little bit there. So let me bring...
Anything goes, people.
Let me bring Margot. You're about to come on. Get your camera ready. Here comes Margot. And Margot, I'll unmute you. And then if you bring it down so we can see you a little better.
Yeah.
There you are. Hey, Margot.
Hey, Margot.
Hi.
Hi.
Hello. I'm joining you from Amsterdam.
Awesome.
Nice to meet you.
You too.
It's nice hearing you speak about radical honesty because I just started getting super into this recently, and yeah, I've seen your face appearing on photos, Tabor, but we haven't had a chance to meet yet. So
Well,
I assume
hope to
that
see you this summer when I'm over there. I'll be traipsing around over there for 3 or 4 months. So.
Okay, cool. So I have a question about this, what you were just saying about this connecting and then letting go, and connecting and then letting go. Mm-hmm. And then it kind of relates actually to what you were speaking about before about this radical honesty. So yeah, my question is, doesn't that also then apply to the degree in which you share things with a loved one? And maybe I can be a bit more specific.
Yeah.
What I'm talking about. So so on the one hand, I have this desire with so I have a lover, and then I have a desire to share with this lover what I'm doing and how I'm feeling and what I'm doing with other people, and I want to hear that from him as well. And then there's also this other part of me that sometimes feels that the flow of like sharing and not sharing is also a way of loving them and loving myself.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So that sometimes I get a bit confused about this. Like if I just go ahead and share everything all the time, then I might not be respecting that kind of giving and taking space. And then I start to feel a paradox between the kind of verbal world of sharing truths and the physical, energetic world of kind of giving and taking over.
How might you not be respecting that giving and taking?
Because it almost starts to feel like I oblige myself to share when in fact I want to take a little bit of time for myself.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh. Right. So in that moment, you're feeling sort of guilty, or imagine there's pressure that what you should be sharing about.
Yeah, and then I get into a funny headspace where it's like, well, I don't really want to share it now, but I should share it, so maybe I'll share it later. And then I get into this murky territory with myself. And then the question is like, oh, I'm in murky territory, so is it better to just let it all out anyways and deal with the consequences, or respect my energetic boundaries and take a break?
So that mind that's asking all those questions is the mind of fear and control. Remember, I said that when you try to get close to people, fear and control gets triggered.
Yeah.
So there's a little battle, a little control warfare going on at that time. It's sort of like, oh, I should control myself and make myself tell the truth, because telling the truth is a good thing and I should be good, and I'll be bad if I don't tell the truth. On the other hand, it's like, um, um, if I don't tell the truth, maybe he'll get mad at me, and I don't want to get him to get mad at me. And on the other hand, I don't want to, oppress him with my truth, so blah, 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 blah. Meanwhile, most of that is going on internally.
Yes.
Telling the truth is an in the moment process. It's being revealed moment by moment by moment. And there's a principle I call start right where you are. So if you're thinking, well, I'd like to tell them the truth about, this other guy I'm attracted to, but I'm afraid that would be really upsetting to him, and I'm embarrassed to share and stuff. So I don't know, what should I do? Meanwhile, while you're doing that, you're mind fucking about whether or not you should open your mouth.
Yeah.
To tell the truth about what's here is to say, oh, I notice I'm mind fucking about how open to be with you right now.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. I notice I'm, afraid of upsetting you, or I'm feeling guilty about not sharing more, but I'm resisting it. So you get curious about what already is happening right now, not what could happen in the future, not me, trying to figure out what should happen in the future, revealing what's already happening right now. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
It's funny because telling the truth very easily gets lumped into this category of things that are good or bad.
Mm-hmm.
Some people say, oh, well, telling too much truth is bad. That's rude, or that's unkind, or something like that. Other people, it's like, no, telling the truth is clearly good. It's a virtuous thing to do. Or, well, it's virtuous here and it's bad there, So people get into a whole mindfuck about how is telling the truth good or how is it bad. That is not the paradigm in which I am existing or which I'm trying to share. Good and bad is part of the control strategy. If you let go of control and learn to accept and embrace and even love reality as it is, then telling the truth is neither of those things. It's just being transparent. It's just realizing that at any given moment, the most interesting thing for me to say or to hear may very well be exactly what's going on right now. That's the most interesting. It is to me, you know. So if I were with you and you were confused in that way, I would probably notice that you were kind of like seemed preoccupied.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I'd want to say, huh, I'm noticing the way that you're looking or your tone of voice. I'm worrying that something's going on with you. I'm imagining that you're kind of preoccupied. Would you tell me what's going on with you?
Mm-hmm.
And then I would want you to say, oh, I'm all preoccupied with how much truth I should be telling you right now. And I'm resisting it and kind of resenting it, but I also think I should. And I'd say, well, don't tell me anything because you should, but I'm glad that you told me what's actually going on with you.
Mm-hmm.
And then I might ask, you know, how do you make telling me the truth something that you think you should do instead of want to do? What's scary about telling the truth? Or how do you resist it? Or what are you afraid of? You know, and that'll start getting down to the deep stuff. You know, well, I'm afraid that if I tell all the truth with you, that you'll hate me, or that you'll move further away from me, or that you'll, you know, call me to that I have no restraint or whatever. You know, people have all of their own different trips about it. But and then the other thing is you can just ask, you know, you can say, would you like to hear right now about what's been going on with me in my love life outside of you? You guys have like an open relationship? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, or yeah, we're lovers. Yeah.
Right. So then you just say, you know, when do we want to talk to each other about what we're doing with other people? How do we want to handle that? You know, now some people might say, I don't want to handle that. I don't ask, don't tell, too much information. For me personally, that's not a very interesting relationship with me because I want these relationships that are transformational. And so part of my personal ground rule for relationship is that we're totally open with each other about everything. That's just how I want to play. And you can determine with somebody else, is that how you want to play or not? How's that? Anything else about all that?
Yeah, it's pretty good. I realize now listening to you that a lot of it for me is, I think, also around wanting to, yeah, it's about wanting to maintain a degree of control, I think. I noticed that I kind of allow myself some truth telling up into a certain degree, but then I want it to be kind of completed. Like, okay, now we got to the bottom of this, cool, we can both take a break and go do other things. And it's like, then when even more stuff appears after all that talking, you're like, oh shit, not again, you know? This is a fucking bottomless pit of truth telling, and it's never gonna end.
Exactly. That's another bit of grieving that intimacy requires of you. Grieving the fact that, God, there's so much shit here. There's so many wounds, there's so many sensitive feelings. It's like, boys just want to have fun, you know? It's like, why can't it be easier? Blah, blah, blah. But yeah, what we're after is learning to fall in love with reality as it is. And that means dropping your own resistance to not showing up the way that you wish it would, you know? Or like some people like me who've been doing like this kind of work for years and years, one of the voices can be like, oh God, not again. Haven't I finished this one yet? I went to therapy. I went to the workshop, blah, 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 blah. I should have this handled by now. But no, whoever's showing up is whoever needs your attention.
Thank you.
Thank you, Margot. Good questions.
All right. Thanks, Margot. Yeah, Tabor, that just reminded me of just that grieving you were talking about, that when the stuff comes back again and it's like, oh man, I'm going through that again. And it feels like, I just want to kind of get away from it. Why do I got to do all this? Why do I got to do all this truth stuff and all? And then oddly, the flip side of that is not allowing that stuff to come up and move just keeps it all in place. So, I mean, I really love when you say loving reality, because you can't get away from it. It's just what's there.
There's that old saying, it was big in the humanistic psychology era, but it goes right back to dear old Buddha and stuff of what we resist persists. To the extent that you're trying to fix something, manage it, control it, rush it to be better than it is, the more that it hangs around. It's this miracle that accepting something about yourself, something in your relationship, something about the other, exactly as it is the road to allowing it to evolve into its next thing. But the degree that you need it to be different than it is, then it digs in its heels.
And Tabor, there's a couple other questions that came up around, do I need to tell the truth all the time and all? And I think it really came up really well with Margot's question here. Thanks, Margot, for that. That, like, I sometimes call it like jumping over the moment, that there's some truth that should be shared. I'm going to be the authentic person if I just share that truth. And yet the reality is the one, as you said, that's just closest to us. It's I'm nervous to say this right now. I want to be the person who says this thing, yada, yada, yada. That the actual truth is just right there when we open our awareness to it.
Yes. And that whole, again, also kind of similar to our conversation with Margot, the mind that asks, do I need to tell the truth all of the time, is the one that's worried about good and bad and right and wrong and what we should and shouldn't do. So I wouldn't even answer that question as it is. Do I need to tell the truth all the time? Better not be, because you aren't. There's no way in life that you are telling the truth all the time. It's just not. You're a human, so that is not happening. But the question is, can you invite yourself more and more of the time to the practice of compassionate awareness? It's like saying, do I need to meditate 24 hours a day? Well, if you could, I would be envious. I have not managed that feat yet. It would be ideal, and those who have supposedly achieved enlightenment or something probably have that experience of being totally grounded in their own compassionate here and now awareness all of the time. The degree to which I'm able to do that now compared to many years ago blows me away, and I'm deeply grateful for it. But it's still, the awareness comes and goes. It comes forward and then it recedes and stuff like that. So there's the meditation of sitting on a pillow practicing that, but then there's the meditation of that being your reality while you're cooking dinner or driving your car or brushing your teeth or whatever. So how much of the time can you invite yourself into that place of compassionate awareness of what's going on right here and right now? Awareness of awareness. It takes a bunch of practice, but you can get better and better at having that be a thread that comes more and more through your life. And when you're by yourself, that's what it looks like. When you're with another person and you really want to create this kind of transformational intimacy that I'm talking about, it's like choosing to meditate out loud. Now, do you need to choose to meditate out loud all of the time? No, of course not. Would choosing to meditate more out loud more and more of the time be potentially enriching for you? Yes. If you're not forcing it, if you're not doing it because you think you should, if you're not trying too hard, if you're just allowing yourself to reveal yourself to another person, yeah, the more the merrier. But here's the thing. A spiritual teacher of mine, when I was complaining to him about that I wasn't spending more of my time in that total presence, said, well, we're not strong enough for that yet. You have to kind of build your capacity to be present. You have to build your capacity to actually be in a state of awareness of what's going on right now. He was talking solo, but I can say also, you build your capacity to be truly present with another human. And you build your capacity to reveal yourself, to be aware of what's going on with you and to name it out loud and to feel more as a result of saying it, because you will. If you start telling the truth in this sort of way, being honest and open in this sort of way, it will intensify your own experience of yourself, which is why we avoid it. It's kind of this paradox where we think we crave intimacy and connection and stuff, but we also fear it because being really intimate is a more intense experience of being alive than not being. And you got to kind of build your capacity for it. That being said, I would promote a policy of total honesty in relationships that you want to be transformational. Now, by total honesty, it doesn't mean that 24 hours a day we will be telling the truth to each other about what's happening right now, but it means there's nothing I'm avoiding telling you. Mm-hmm. Big difference. If there's anything that I'm afraid to tell you, or that I feel too embarrassed to tell you, or I'm resisting telling you, then that's the thing to tell you. So it's kind of a bitter pill sometimes for people at first. And I'm not saying that's how you should live your life. It's the way that I choose to live my life. It's the way that I suggest creating the container for these transformational relationships, or I call them revolutionary relationships, is that you have this commitment to total honesty. Now, even if you have that commitment, occasionally you'll notice, oops, I fell down. I was kind of withholding this piece, so now I need to go back and clean that up. And you recommit yourself to that over and over again. But yeah, I think even though it's a moving target, the total honesty is my target and the one that I recommend.
All right. So with that, we're going to go to Roman, or if he's a Frenchman, Roman, bringing him on right now. All right.
You
Hey
see
there.
me?
I see you.
I am feeling super nervous for about like 20 minutes.
Yeah, beautiful. So that's a wonderful example of telling the truth right there. So I'm going to pause you right there because I've been talking about what you're doing, but now you're starting to do what we were talking about. So how do you know you're nervous in this moment?
My heart is pumping intensely, and I feel it I hear it in my head, and my palm, voice is shaking and breathing is non-stable.
Yeah, I really appreciate you for telling us all that. I appreciate you for starting your call by saying, I've been nervous for 20 minutes. I feel some warmth in my chest talking to you. So you just created more connection and intimacy between us by sharing that truth about yourself. So to stay with that nervousness a little more, see if you can welcome all of those sensations as best you can, even though you would tend to not choose them. See if you can choose them. Okay, I'm just going to let my heart pound, feel that throbbing, hear that sound in my head, all of that. See if you can just choose to befriend your experience right now exactly as it is. And to look at that nervousness from another angle, try finishing this sentence. I'm making myself nervous right now by worrying that, and fill in the blank with whatever fear you think your mind might be generating. I'm making myself nervous by worrying that.
I'm making myself nervous by worrying that my question has been multiple times before, and I'm also making myself ashamed for asking it.
That your question has been what before?
Answered before. So like you've already commented on that, and I can assume the answer well enough without asking you anything.
Yeah, beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. So this is the mind of control again. That fearful control mind, that fix-it mind, I sometimes call it, wants to protect you from the potential experience of shame, right? Don't do something stupid. Don't ask a question that's already been answered. Maybe he'll say, oh, I already answered that. Weren't you listening? And then you'll feel this wave of shame and embarrassment. So that nervousness is a form of fear, and the fear is of the potential future experience of shame. Yeah?
Yeah, I imagine that what I would feel if you would say that would be very similar to what I was feeling when I started talking.
Right. So in a sense, the worst has already happened. You're so scared of that future experience that you're already having the experience. Isn't that isn't that
Yes.
interesting? That's the way the mind works, unfortunately. So the trick is the stronger you get at fully embracing whatever experience is arising, the more you can learn to love instead of fearing the experience of shame, then the more you have nothing left to lose. You can afford to be your naked, unprotected self because it's like, oh yeah, now I'm feeling shame. Wow, here comes shame. Oh yeah, I'm feeling some shame. Check it out, And you're not, but what the mind does is it turns the shame into this like monster waiting under the bed, and terrifies you of it. Whereas you say, oh, I'm old friends with that monster, bring him to tea, then the overall level of fear in your life lowers. But where you start is by loving the fear. So you did beautifully, and I appreciate you for how you've been revealing yourself and for answering my questions. And so without losing touch with everything that you're experiencing right now in the moment, feel free to go ahead and ask your boring old question.
Um, well, it's quite practical towards sex, and I have this dilemma that sex is quite different in my fantasy and in my experience. And I imagine I'm avoiding a lot of stuff during sex, a lot of emotional stuff, and I'm super non-present. But one of the like very visible issues is feelings of disgustedness sometimes, and and I imagine like I could overcome it and still do things that I imagine would be fun to do. But
No. I love your question. I think I judge you as courageous for asking your question, and it's really rich. There's a lot I can say about that. For one thing, do you watch a lot of porn?
Um, my computer started having problems, but I think you asked
Your
something about
your
porn.
your your computer got shocked at my question. Froze.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
what I said is, do you watch a lot of porn?
Yes, I do. Well, I don't know what do you mean by a lot, but I watch it more often than 3 times a week, four
Yeah.
times a week, something like that.
So sadly, even though I think that the internet is a blessing in many ways, as far as porn goes, I think that oftentimes the internet is kind of a curse because it encourages people to equate sexuality with sitting in front of a screen, which they can control. And, like I said, we all in relationship, we secretly want control. And with the computer, you have it, so like, oh, I can pick the person I can make the person look just the way I want. I can tell them when to speed up or slow down and blah, blah, blah. And it takes you off into a more and more abstract experience of reality. By comparison, trying to connect with a real live flesh and blood person is a very messy business. But that's why I, of course, would highly recommend it, even though it's disappointing. Even though it's disappointing, I would encourage you to, as much as you can compassionately do with yourself, wean yourself off of porn and spend more and more time in a face-to-face connection with somebody. And it doesn't matter whether you actually have sex with that person, or it's the practice of intimacy is what we're after here. And and that means revealing everything that comes up. That means if it's someone you're attracted to, you sit in front of them and you tell them, "Wow, I feel attracted to you. I know so because I feel my kind of tension in my chest, or my genitals are getting warm, or whatever. I can experiencing this experience that I call attraction. And and then you move forward from there with slow motion, slow, deliberate steps, like, hey, I notice I would love to uh, see you naked. Would you be willing to get naked with me? And then we look at each other, and you make that a direct request in the way that we were talking about before, without attachment, or you probably have a preference in the matter, but you're not trying to persuade or push. You're just saying, would you like to do that with me? And if so, then you get naked and you stand in front of each other and you look at each other naked and you notice, how am I feeling right now? Just in the way that we were doing with your nervousness. Oh, my heart's pounding, or oh, I'm uh, feeling warm in my chest, or whatever. And as you work your way into the sexual occasion, you keep noticing exactly what's happening, keep trying to accept exactly what's happening, and keep telling the truth about what's happening, which includes, oh, now I'm feeling disgusted, or now I'm feeling ashamed, or, waves of stuff may come up that don't seem very sexy and that you don't like. It's kind of like I was talking about with Margot. It's sort of like, that part of you that's like, oh, no, not this. I don't want to have to deal with this. Let's get to the good stuff. This was supposed to be about pleasure. But the practice I'm recommending is that you try not to privilege pleasure over pain. You try to be equally welcoming of whatever shows up. Now, in the long run, that will actually lead to much more pleasure than you are capable of when you're trying to control things. But in the short run, you may have a bunch of waves to go through. A lot of people do. Sexual shame is huge. sexual shame is epidemic, you know, and I love to work with people around that specifically because of that. We, John and I are going to be doing this 8-day retreat in the Hollywood Hills coming up soon, which still has a few slots left if you're interested. It's the beginning of March. And when we do those kind of retreats, we have an exercise where on the 4th or 5th day, everybody in the retreat gets naked. There's going to be, 15 to 20 of us. We all get naked. Stand there, look around, look at each other, look at ourselves. And then one person at a time stands up in front of the group and says, well, this is my body. This is what I like about my body. This is what I don't like about my body. These are my positive and negative judgments of my body. And a lot of people, when they're doing that, feel a lot. They're, their heart is pounding or they're sweating from their armpits or their kneecaps are shaking. We just say, yeah, stay with that. Ride those waves of fear and shame. And what happens is if they stop resisting them, they kind of ebb and flow. There's waves and they kind of have an orgasm of shame and then it passes. And eventually they're kind of like, oh, this isn't so bad. I'm just a naked ape standing up in front of a whole bunch of other naked apes, and I can tolerate this. This is okay. And then we have them talk about their sexual history and what they do and don't approve of in their sexual history, what they're embarrassed about, what turns them on, and stuff like that. Again, a lot of people have a lot of shame about that, but we encourage them to just ride the waves. So, and the people who are most resistant to that exercise are generally the ones that get the most out of it. So when you start to get involved with someone, I would say to them, I'm attracted to you. I would like to get sexy with you, but I also, first and foremost, want to use my connection with you as a source of transformation and healing and growing in love and shedding shame. Would you be willing to play that game with me? That will require going in slow motion and telling the truth. Now that kind of shit is scary to everybody, but in general, I gotta say, women are gonna be more open to it than most men are. So a lot of women will be if you're heterosexual, I don't know, but if you are, a lot of women will appreciate you for asking for that. And some may not want to play that game, but plenty will. So go for it. And I look forward to hearing about your adventures. Are you in Europe? Are you in Europe?
Yeah, I'm in Ukraine.
Oh, in Ukraine. Okay. Well,
Yeah.
yeah, I'll be in Europe this summer. So if you get a chance, come visit.
Yeah, I'll be in Italy at the 8-day workshop with you.
Oh, awesome. Awesome.
Yeah. Yeah,
All
I booked
right.
this one already.
Good to meet you in advance, Roman. I will look forward to hearing about your adventures when we meet.
Yeah, for sure. I look forward to seeing you.
No,
I appreciate you for the advice that you've given me, and I feel like it addresses my fear of the partner closing up after me sharing, my whatever feelings I have.
You make it consensual. You say, I would like to engage in the practice of total honesty with each other for the sake of transformation, for the sake of acceptance. Do you want to play that game with me? Let them say yes or no.
And Roman, you'll get good practice at the 8-day. So you'll be able to fumble around a bit with people there on that issue. Yeah.
Cool.
All right. Thanks, Roman.
Yeah, thank you.
Tabor, it reminds me, I've been talking a bunch with some people who are in men's groups and all.
Uh-huh.
And there's this kind of what I notice like a kind of phony performance about the man taking on this kind of the fire masculine, and they're jumping over this step of all the messy stuff in between. And so this kind of brings that up. It's just like we as men also have to go through that process. And I was telling to them and to myself too, that's where the courage is, the moment to moment revealing, not the, I have my masculine fire energy, yada, yada, yada.
Yeah. Well, there are totally different purposes in play. The whole pickup scene, the whole how to be more attractive to the opposite sex scene, uh, is rife with dishonesty, and it's painful for me to witness. But to be fair, their goal is completely different. If you're doing engaged in the whole pickup scene, then the goal is having sex with as many people as you can, and you're going more for quantity of sex rather than quality of sex. Admittedly, what I'm talking about is coming from the other end of the tunnel. It can result in lots of amazing sex, but the point is first quality of connection. And the point is spiritual growth or transformation rather than attachment to any particular goal. And you can have just as much transformation by being thoroughly disappointed as by getting your way. In fact, probably more so.
Mm-hmm.
There's a Tibetan Buddhist teacher, Chogyam Trungpa, who would say, "Disappointment is a wonderful chariot to ride on the road to the Dharma." So, yeah.
All right. So we had, let's see what, I was about to bring Eric on, but I think maybe Eric just left. Okay, I don't see Eric here anymore. Okay, so Tabor, it's 1:15. We've been on an hour and 15 minutes. How are you for going a little bit longer for another 15 minutes or so?
Yeah, sure.
All right.
I will say, maybe I'll just take a moment now to say that if we haven't met before, thank you for being on this call. Appreciate the chance to connect, and invite you to come on over to my website, which is www.taberji.org. And we got all kinds of stuff going on. There's going to be more of these calls. As I mentioned, John and I are doing an 8-day retreat in LA. We're going to start up a virtual online purpose course soon about leading a life of passion and purpose. I'll be doing a weekend in Baltimore in beginning of April. And I'm always available for conversation and counseling and stuff. So always feel free to reach out to me. And my bigger vision is not just individual workshops. We're actually trying to build transformational community here. And I heartily invite you to be part of our community, because even the greatest relationship, that individual relationship, erotic or romantic relationship, as far as I'm concerned, cannot really be that healthy or achieve its full potential if it's not embedded in a larger community. In my case, what I'm calling conscious community, people who are practicing in these ways that we've been talking about with each other as a community. So there's communities, there's ongoing communities in different places that we are supporting. I go back, this is the 4th year I'm going to be going back to Berlin, Italy and stuff, and here in the Bay Area. So we're trying to support the growth of ongoing local communities, and we are trying to create a vibrant online community of people who support each other, connect with each other, go and visit each other and stuff. So I hope you'll become part of this transformational truth-telling tribe.
All right, Tabor, we have Katarzyna, who's going to come on the call right now. Got a question for you.
Yes.
All right, there you are. I appreciate you for coming on right now.
Well, I appreciate you for saying that. Yeah, and I just went all the way from asking my question anonymously to being here. Thanks for your support.
Nice.
Hey, Tabor. Well, now when you said something, I see you, and I prefer it that way.
Yes.
Okay, so my heart is beating really fast, and my hands are shaking, and I'm making myself worried about my English. And my question is, I believe I heard Brad saying that you cannot get over being mad at someone any other way than by sharing it with them and actually feeling your way through it. So,
Not.
and
Oh, go ahead.
yeah, and well, if I don't push myself into sharing whatever comes up, I find myself mind-fucking and thinking that, well, okay, I do feel mad at someone at some particular moment, and then I wait a little bit and just stay present, and after a few minutes, I'm just not angry anymore. So I'm making myself confused about it, and I'm curious what you think.
Yeah, several things.
Mm-hmm.
One, no, I wouldn't say that it's impossible to get over being angry without talking to a person face to face, because, for instance, I'll work with people who are still angry at their dead father, you know, and I'd say it's possible for them to get over being angry at their father, even if he's dead and not available to talk to. But what I think he did say was it's impossible to get over your anger without actually feeling your way through it. You can't just say like, oh, well, I shouldn't be mad at that person, so I'm going to quit being mad at them. He's saying, no, it's a bodily experience and you have to release it with your whole body. Now, that still doesn't completely require that you talk to the person, but what happens is that most of the time, the vast majority of the time, when somebody doesn't talk to the person that they're angry about, it's out of fear. It's out of this controlling place that I've been talking about. It's like, oh, I don't want things to get messy. Oh, that would be embarrassing. I don't want them to be scared. I don't want to hurt their feelings. La, 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 the whole litany of reasons why my fear is justified and I should not talk to them. Now, when you do that, it's like John and I were talking about earlier. You're resisting, and what you're resisting persists. So even though your anger may appear to be gone, it will usually just go underground. And what happens is you start accumulating a lot of anger in the closet. Or sometimes I use the metaphor of you have an experience in your hand right here, right now. You resist it, so it kind of hardens and contracts and becomes like a rock, and you throw that rock in your backpack. Oh, I don't see any rock. It's fine, but I'm carrying it around on my backpack. So before long, I've got a big, heavy backpack full of rocks. Part of how you might know that you're not actually so over it is that you go to that same person and you say to them, oh, I appreciate you for doing that thing. The thing that you said before you hated them or were angry at them for. Like if you're mad at them for something they said to you yesterday, and then a few hours later you say, oh no, I'm not mad at them for that anymore. Then I would say to you, okay, tell them you appreciate them for saying that. And you'll say, no, I couldn't say that. I say, what happened just there? You'll notice your whole body contracted at the idea of telling them your appreciation. That rock just quickly jumped out of the backpack and into your face. You get what I'm saying? So the way that I would suggest someone like you starts is you go to a bunch of people and say, you know what? I've realized about myself that I have a tendency to swallow my anger. And so there's been a lot of little things or maybe big things. Maybe they seem even like petty things to me that I have gotten angry at you about, but that I swallowed. And I would like to clean that up. So would you be willing to listen to me tell you about the things that I've gotten mad at you about, with the understanding that my job, as I see it, is not to tell you you're right or wrong. It's not to criticize you. It's just to acknowledge that I made myself angry and that I want to feel that so I can actually let it go, so that I cannot be holding this grudge against you. So would you be willing to listen to me? And then you do it. And as you do it, you notice everything you feel in your body. You notice your, like even when I started talking about you doing it, I could see your body reacting, right? You started going, up in here, breathing higher in the chest, which is related to tension in the torso, and you probably your heart pounding a little faster. All that is the juicy stuff that you're going to choose to embrace instead of avoiding. Say, I'd love to scare the shit out of myself by telling you how I'm angry at you. That should be entertaining for you. Would you be willing to watch me have a heart attack while I try to tell you how angry I am?
Well, yeah, thank you. I love this. I appreciate you for your answer.
And I appreciate you for wrestling with the question. And as you do, compassion is what's needed all the way around. Compassion is what eventually dissolves the anger, and compassion is what you use with yourself while you're in fear about telling the truth. Oh, Katarzyna, is that how you say it?
Katarzyna.
Oh. What?
Katarzyna.
Katarzyna.
Yeah.
Okay, Katarzyna. You're feeling really scared right now. Wow, okay, feel everything. Feel all that heart pounding and sweating and whatever. I know that you're scared, and you don't have to do this, but I actually think that this would really serve you. How can I support you in doing this, you know? What would help, you know? So you just take it one step at a time, and you have compassion for yourself about how you are scared. And you don't make it into a big, heavy, good, bad thing. It's not like you should be telling the truth. It's like, This is for you. This is your liberation. Telling the truth is just a way of loving yourself. And when you're really scared, then loving yourself how scared you are is loving yourself. But avoiding stuff is not a very good way of loving yourself.
Yeah, thank you. I'm gonna let that sink in and stay present.
Okay, beautiful. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
All right, Tabor, we're right at 1:30. We got some great responses of people saying that was a very clear answer that you gave there on that question there. So great. I love when you talked about the anger going underground. Sometimes with myself, if I think I've like somehow willed myself to get over something, I just pass by that person and I start to notice how I want to move away. All these indirect ways of like, I want to get away from them or something. I'm like, oh, there it is. All right.
I just happen to be gravitating toward the opposite side of the room.
Yeah. And we have a phrase here in California, which is people use a lot. They use the phrase, I just don't like that person's energy. Somehow about this nebulous energy field of them, as opposed to I'm actually mad at something they specifically did. So
I don't like the energy I feel in my body when I get close to them.
yeah, yeah. Oh. All right, Tabor. Well, we're at right at 1:30, and I'm going to need to hop off in a few minutes.
All right.
So we don't have any more raised hands. We have a few written in questions, and we can finish up with, I can kind of put them all into one, which I think is the way to get at some of those.
Snowball that question.
Okay. So I think the gist of some of the questions that have come in basically is, one has the question, I'm struggling with some abandonment issues from childhood, as well as sexual abuse from the teen years that are affecting my capability to get into deep relationships, friendships. What are some ways to work with that? Then a few other people have asked the question, how do I love myself first? Like you talked about in relationships. Someone else also asked about anger towards their parents and allowing myself to feel those things again. So it seems like the underlying thing is something about maybe some guidelines you can give us here about how to connect with ourselves and love ourselves in the midst of all this. And you've alluded to that, but maybe we could finish with a kind of thing around that.
Well, this may not be exciting, or it may be totally inspiring. One is, this is not a do-it-yourself project. The kind of work that we're talking about is the work of transformation. And in my world, transformation is a team sport. And that's why I build the kind of communities that I do. That's why I offer the kind of workshops that I do. And frankly, when we do these calls, I want to offer you a lot of value, but I also want to entice you to come closer, because what we all need, I know I do, and I reckon you do, what we all need is these conscious, compassionate communities, groups of people who work together. And I've been doing this work, God, over 30 years now. And I've learned a lot about how to do it. I've got a lot of experience in it. And that's why I'm so passionate about sharing this with other people. This is my ministry. This is my spiritual path. And so I think that this kind of conscious communication and conscious community is what's going to save us as a species, or not. So I would say, reach out, come closer, contact me anytime. You can Facebook message me, or you can go to the website, taborg.org, or you're welcome to reach out anytime, and I can help you individually with these things. Come to workshops, join in with us, join the community. I have a practice community in Facebook, but I think I'm going to start another one that's broader. That one's primarily for people who've already done a workshop, but I think I'm going to start another one just for this larger community that we are forming. So join all of that. That said, here's just a quick pointer. Compassionate awareness is the healer. It's not, there's a lot of things you can do with parts work or working with your inner child and stuff. But the common denominator, the foundation of it all, is this compassionate awareness. So make a time during the day when you sit down to meditate. And by meditate, I don't mean anything fancy. I mean just bringing awareness to your own body in this moment. Notice the kind of sensations that are happening in your body at this moment. Notice how you quickly want to change the subject, go think about something else. Keep bringing your awareness back into the body. Keep letting yourself feel everything you feel, and notice the kind of thoughts that you're going through your mind without feeding them. And then when, as you develop that muscle, that capacity for presence with yourself, you bring that into intimacy. You bring that into connecting with other people. And you become more able to be aware of yourself and put your experience into words while you're connecting with other people. It's a huge art to do all that. So again, I almost feel guilty trying to pretend that I can educate you on that in 3 minutes, you know. But you're certainly welcome to join us. And as you do, you learn a whole language, a whole way of being with yourself, a whole way of putting your experience into words and being with that experience as it naturally heals itself. Evolution is trying to happen through you. Evolution wants to heal. Evolution wants to grow. Evolution wants to create connection and love. And it's this fear and resistance and misguided drive for control that we've been talking about that blocks that natural transformation. So it's kind of like Rumi said, you don't have to create the love. All you have to do is find the barriers that you have been erecting and learn against love and learn to dismantle those, and then love will just come pouring in. So yeah, I feel a kind of tension in my chest where it's like, I want to answer all your questions. I want to give you everything you need to have a loved and loving life. And I have to grieve the fact that our time has come to an end and that I can't do it all right now. But I hope that this is just the beginning of our relationship. Please join our mailing list, come to a workshop, reach out to me anytime. And happy Valentine's Day to you. Happy Valentine's Day. May we christen it not a day of romance and chocolate hearts and roses, but a day of love. And may we all learn to not primarily to be loved, but to be love and spread more love in the world.
All right. Thanks, Tabor. Thanks, everybody. Appreciate you all for your questions. There are a few people who we still have questions, so we took your questions down. If you have any more, you can always go to taborg.org and just email them directly. And just keep a lookout. You're all added to the email list, so just keep a lookout if you might be interested in the Life Purpose course, the Soul Purpose course that's coming up. You'll see some announcements for that. It's going to be fun, both online and live calls. And then there's a couple workshops, and then we'll have our next Zoom call like this, which I think will be in about a month or so, and you'll see all that coming to you live in the newsletter.
And if you're watching us through Zoom, then you're not on our mailing. I mean, if you're watching us through Facebook Live, then you're not on our mailing list. So just bop on over to www.taberji.org and join the mailing list.